Canadians are increasingly concerned about affordability, and the national carbon tax is going to make life a lot less affordable. They also don't like leaders that won't answer questions. So yesterday at committee was a real breath of fresh air. We had new United Conservative Party leader Jason Kenney at committee to talk about the carbon tax. And here's what happened.
We've witnessed something extraordinary at this committee. We saw difficult questions put to a witness who is a parliamentarian, and the parliamentarian actually answered them. So that's, he was asked a series of yes-no questions that he answered. He provided an answer to every one of Ms. O'Connell's questions. So if I contrast that with what happened here, for example, last Thursday, where the Minister of Finance was at the table and asked repeatedly by Mr. Poilievre about supplying evidence that had been redacted resulting from an access to information request, asked repeatedly to end the cover-up, and asked repeatedly, what will the cost to ordinary families be for this federally imposed carbon tax? And we did not get any answers, not even an attempt at an answer. So I applaud Mr. Kenney for actually answering questions at committee. We don't see that very often here. Could you, so my question to Mr. Kenney is, in your campaigning, and you've spent the last 2 years campaigning, and it's extraordinary what you've accomplished through uniting the Conservative movement and winning the leadership of that new party, and then winning a by-election. During all of your interaction with regular Albertans, can you relay to this committee some of the feedback that you heard from ordinary Albertans and what they think of the policies of this federal government, specifically the carbon tax?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would characterize, I've done nearly 1,000 events, meeting tens of thousands of people in every walk of life and background across my province in the past 20 months. And what I have found is overwhelming and passionate opposition to the carbon tax, but also the hostility to our energy industry, which of course has not only been a key engine of Canada's prosperity in recent decades, Canada's most important export product, but also hugely important to Alberta's economy, and through that, a key element in Canada's in the Federation. Albertans contribute through their federal taxes a net of about $20 billion a year to fiscal federalism. Much of that fiscal capacity generated by the energy sector, and so Albertans don't understand the approach of bottlenecking our resources and punishing people for living ordinary lives through policies like the carbon tax. And this has real effects on people's lives, which, is why consistently 2/3 of Albertans have indicated opposition to the NDP carbon tax in our province. And that's before, the Eco-Fiscal Commission, Mr. Béguin's organization, said in April of in a recent report that a rising carbon price is so important that a carbon price of $100 per ton won't force actions that cost $200 or even thousands of dollars per ton. I understand Professor Leach, he could correct me if I'm wrong, has said that what you need is a $200 more or less ton carbon price, an expensive retrofit strategy, and a lot of other strategies. The Laurier Centre for Economic Research has said significant hike needed to achieve emissions targets. A 10% reduction in emissions over 7 years would require a $175 a ton levy. The Department of Finance said on February 24th of 2017 that the overall approach is to be reviewed by 2022 to confirm the path forward, including continued increases in stringency, meaning the tax rate in future years. Environment Canada's March 30, 2017 memo said the carbon tax would need to be $300 in 2050.
Have to cut it there, or Mr. Kelly's not going to get into the second question, and Mr. Béguin wants in as well. Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
I would quickly ask you if you've heard from municipal leaders who have pointed out the budgetary constraint that the carbon tax puts on to their operations, heating buildings, running buses, running police cars, all of the things that municipalities have to do.
Both the Alberta Union of Municipalities and the Alberta Association of Municipal Districts and Counties have passed resolutions opposing the current government's policy.
Well, there you have it. Jason Kenney also went on to point out that this carbon tax is simply going to make life more expensive for normal people who do normal things. Things like heating their home in the winter in a cold climate, like being able to see in the dark by turning on the light switch, by transporting your kids to school, whether you have to pay more to fill up your own car or pay more for the bus fees to take your kids to school. So this carbon tax really just hurts normal people who are just trying to live their lives, and that's why we so vigorously oppose the carbon